All right, so I haven't brought up or kept you guys up to date of what's going on in the migrant crisis recently. So let's get into it. So first and foremost, over in New York, a lot of migrants are going to eventually be evicted from their shelters. Take a look.
Well, hundreds of migrants are facing shelter evictions today as new rules go into effect.
Yeah, this affects a lot of people. While some extenuating circumstances are considered, it won't be easy for asylum seekers to prove they should be permitted to stay. Good day's Lizette Nunez joins us from outside the Roosevelt Hotel Intake Center in Midtown with the details and both sides of this story. Lizette, good morning.
Good morning, Dan and Tashani. And those extenuating circumstances could be something like an upcoming immigration hearing, but the city says they have to place these shelter limits because they don't have room for everyone. Just last week, the city received more than 1,300 new arrivals.
It has not gone away. We're still dealing with this every day.
As the migrant crisis continues, New York City leaders will not stop evictions for adult migrants who've reached their 30 or 60-day shelter limit.
Shout out to the southern governors that continue to send up them buses and them planes, trains, and automobiles. Shout out to everybody that continue to send up them trains, planes, and automobiles. And I know that we haven't been covering it, and I know that it's not something popular inside of, what's happening in popular culture on TV or YouTube or whatever. But the reality is that Governor Greg Abbott and Southern governors are continuing to get these migrants to where it is that they want to go. They said that they want to go to New York. New York said that they was a sanctuary city. They said that they welcome themselves to be a melting pot and available for everybody, even if you're here illegally. Okay, cool. Well, we're going to keep sending them to you.
Critics have called the policy inhumane.
People said it's inhumane to put people out during the wintertime. So now they say it's inhumane to do it in the summertime. It's humane to do it in the springtime. It's inhumane to do it in the fall time. It's always inhumane to have to not be able to house 198,000 people.
250 migrants are expected to be evicted this week if they haven't proven they face extenuating circumstances to find new housing. The tightening of this policy comes after a
shout out to Alex
settlement
Smith. I
surrounding
appreciate
New York City's right to shelter law. The rule does not apply to migrant families with children. City officials say they have done their part to help migrants figure out their next steps after their time at the shelter expires, including reticketing asylum seekers to other cities.
We are giving them information. We are connecting them to resources.
Oh, no. Y'all are the sanctuary city. Don't sit here and tell me that y'all want to start redirecting them to other cities. Where y'all going to send them to? The only place left to send them to is Chicago. Send them to the airport over in Boston. Hitting rooms over there in Atlanta. Ain't nowhere else to go but Chicago. Look, we know that Mayor Eric Adams is under duress. He's 100% under duress. But we also know that Mayor Brandon Johnson is the weakest link. We know that Mayor Brandon Johnson is the weakest link. Mike Johnson over in Denver, he abandoned Brandon Johnson and all of this mayor coalition a long time ago. Once he realized there wasn't no results that was going to come along with it. Brandon Johnson, though, he's stubborn. He got a different disposition. He moves a little bit differently, and so he's way more likely to endure through this and never, ever cut off the door because he said that he was going to contact the archdiocese. So they sending them over there to Chicago. Shout out to the Chi.
And we are talking to them about what those next steps are going to be.
If we would not have done anything, we would have had 198,000 people still in our care instead of 65,000.
And we also have an update out of Randall's Island. The Randall's Island Park Alliance, they are calling for all the tent shelters to be removed. This is something they have been asking from the city for quite some time now, but now they are threatening legal action. City officials also responding, say they need that space because, once again, we continue to see those new arrivals. That's Leah's here from Midtown. Dan and Tashana will send things back inside.
So, but in addition to that, over in San Diego, they've recently approved a new $20 million migrant center for the county. It's just amazing the amount of money that's being spent on this stuff in order to accommodate people that's not even supposed to be here. It's amazing to me.
Mixed bag of reactions tonight from local leaders as a San Diego County Board of Supervisors approve federal funding for a new migrant welcome center. Our Kasha Gregorczyk starts us off live from the county administration building with details on this nearly $20 million project. Kasha.
Well, good evening, Kathleen. The last migrant center closed in late February due to a lack of funding. Now, with more than $19.5 million in federal funding, a new migrant center is on track for later this summer.
Sometimes I can't honestly say that I hate it here.
Approved in a 4-to-1 vote, San Diego County will accept more than $19.5 million in federal money for a migrant transition day center. It will provide shelter, food, hygiene, and transportation for immigrants to reach their final destinations within the U.S. Supervisor Jim Desmond was the lone vote against accepting the one-time money, saying it's not a long-term plan.
I think we're just putting a Band-Aid on a symptom instead of fixing the problem, and that problem is in my mind, the overwhelming numbers is the federal government's issue, but we should be vetting the people coming through.
Vice Chair Tara Lawson-Remer critical of Desmond's response.
We were saying, okay, we don't want some money that we're being offered to help fix a problem that we know we have because we want to keep this problem festering to make more politics out of it. I think this is absurd. We all agree that we have to fix the border crisis. We all agree that more investment needs to be made in border security and vetting folks.
The county will also require any nonprofit contractors to accept all migrants with a goal of keeping them off the streets.
We have an unprecedented number coming across the border now, and we don't need any federally sponsored homelessness.
Chairwoman Nora Vargas issued a written statement saying in part the center will help close the gap in addressing the global humanitarian crisis at our border. According to the county, 136,000 migrants have been released by CBP since mid-September. When the last migrant assistance shelter closed in late February, many wound up at transit centers or at the airport with no help.
We do want to process them and not have them stay in San Diego County because we can't handle or manage that. But all we're doing is we're just sending them someplace else. We're just moving the problem someplace else.
And that's all a lot of the politicians care about. They only care about it not being their problem. They're not trying to solve for the main issue of why they're there in the first place. And it all comes back to the same thing. It all comes back down to the same thing. Why isn't our federal government doing more to close off our borders and vet people that are supposed to be here or who aren't supposed to be here, and then making sure that they're doing the right thing? They are running around securing the black vote, telling you what it is that you should and shouldn't do, pandering to this person, showing up in NAACP dinners, going to Morehouse, going to Howard, doing commencement speeches, becoming an honorary doctorate of these places, talking about abortion, women's rights, appearing on Drew Barrymore's show in order to be the mamala in charge. But none of them are continuously doing the thing that is in the best interest of the people. And what is that? Making sure that they close off our borders and vet who is supposed to be here and who not supposed to be here. So there's blood on their hands. There is blood on their hands. And whether they want to admit it or not, because again, responsibilities. With great power comes great responsibility. You have to be accountable for the thing that you then put your people in harm's way of. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. I heard that Mayor Eric Adams was doing an interview in which he spoke a little bit about the protests and the migrant crisis. Let me see what's happening.
Good news this morning about the city's latest, even more progress.
Good morning.
Think about 1961, the last time we made these major changes. We were having a rotary phone. Now we have a smartphone. Yet our business and local businesses cannot adjust properly to the type of businesses that came out of that. And that's what we're going after.
All right, Mr. Grodnick, what exactly do you want to say yes to? What are some things that are kind of...
Building ourselves do business in New York.
We're with you on that. Thank you so much. Mayor, while we have you here, I want to ask you about a couple of other topics addressing concerns around the city. And I want to start with an incident that happened over the weekend in Brooklyn, in Bay Ridge, with the pro-Palestinian protesters. That's an annual parade event that they have there. And this year, we saw 40 arrests. And the video that has been released that we're showing right now, according to New York Times, 3 protesters were beaten by the police department, but then the police say that bottles were thrown at them. Can you clarify exactly what happened this weekend in Brooklyn for everybody?
Well, clearly, listen, I am not pleased that people can yell out death to America, destroy America. I'm not pleased that people can have flags of Hamas and ISIS and terrorist groups. But those are constitutionally protected rights that you have to use those type of terminologies, and we're going to protect those rights. What you don't have a right to do is to ride up on top of city buses, to hold up almost 68 calls for emergency services, and those vehicles couldn't get through. You don't have a right to spit in the face of police officers and destroy property. You don't have that right. And so when people take an isolated encounter of a police officer and not the totality of what happened before and after, of those who attempted to resist arrest, those who attempted to disobey lawful orders and take those who are under arrest away from the police officers, that's not acceptable. It's not going to happen. And we're going to protect the right to protest, but you don't have the right to destroy this city.
I agree with that 100%. I don't have any problems with what his stance is and how he's handled protesters over in New York. Let me see if I can find out what he's talking about as far as the migrant crisis.
The pressure of running a city of this size. That's why we need a calm hand, a competent hand. That's why we know someone that not only police these streets, but walk these streets. I know how to ensure that people can have their constitutional right without disrespect. Crime is down, jobs are at a record level. Those who go outside the
I want to ask you about a statement made by the governor of Texas, Dan Abbott.
Greg Abbott, buddy.
Pardon me.
Greg Abbott, not Dan, not Patrick. His name is Governor on Wheels. Meals on Wheels, Professor X. Greg Abbott, you better put some respect on that man's name. Let me get a round of applause for Greg Abbott. Shout out to Professor Wheels that's out here being the greatest governor of all time. Let's continue.
Governor Abbott down there at the NRA convention over the weekend, he said he's going to continue to send more migrants to sanctuary cities, implying New York City as well. Your take on that?
Well, first of all, it's unfortunate that he would rather not collaborate with the other municipalities like Chicago, Denver, Los Angeles, so that we can have a unified voice to call for the authorization to work and call for the proper funding. That's what we should be doing. And for him to take that stance, sanctuary cities, that law has nothing to do with migrants and asylum seekers. I cannot make that clearer. People are paroled into this country legally. They should be able to have the dignity to work, and it should be funded by the national government.
Cool. Then take it into your, go ahead and get it in. Go ahead and take them into your city.
Point that out, because that's one point we keep bringing up every time we talk to you. It's a federal issue that's been kind of dumped on the states and the cities.
Better be careful. You know Biden is going to slap you
help
with
from the federal government.
You
talk to them. Are you getting anywhere?
And not where we should be getting. But keep in mind, while we're calling for that, we're not sitting on our hands. We were able to handle 194,000 migrants and asylum seekers that came into the city. We put in place smart decisions that we're down to only a little over 60,000 that are still in our care. A large number have gone on to the next leg of their journey. So we're not just sitting back. Yes, we need help from the federal government.
What the heck does that mean? Somebody keep me informed and keep me up to date. What does that mean? Okay, 194,000 minus 60 is 134,000 migrants on the next leg of journey of their existence. What does that mean? Does that mean y'all sent them back to the country that they came into? That they now have work authorizations, that you're no longer on the payrolls, that they taking up jobs, that they out here DoorDash and under somebody else's ID? What exactly does that mean as far as 134,000 migrants on their way to the next leg of their journey? What does that mean? And let's be clear, we can't have protesters coming into the city. We will protect your right to protest. We do not like the fact that you yell at the police, you say death to police officers, but at the same time, we cannot have people riding on city buses. We cannot have people resisting arrest. We cannot have people taking people out of police officers' hands. And so what we're going to do is we're going to enforce the law. I do not agree with what it is that the New York Times wrote, but at the same time, we protect your right to protest. That's who we are in America. I walk the streets of New York. I know exactly what the people need. And we have been handling this migrant crisis with grace, with care. Governor Greg Abbott down there in Texas, he refused to work together and hold hands with us over in LA, over in Chicago. Shout out to Brandon Johnson over in Chicago. Shout out to Mike Johnston over in Denver. Shout out to Karen Bass over there in LA, Atlanta. And what we're calling for is more federal assistance to make sure that we can get these migrants on the next journey, on the next leg of their journey. We have handled at least 194,000 migrants that has been in our care. And even though we have not gotten the federal assistance that we think that we need, we're not just sitting on our hands. We're not just waiting for Biden and the Biden administration to continue to help New Yorkers. New Yorkers, what we do is we come together. We came together in 9/11. We came together in the pandemic. We came together in the recession. And we're coming together with this migrant crisis. And I know what the people in New York need. All right. So I don't care what's going on. We're going to do what we do while at the same time asking the federal government for assistance. That's what he just said. Word for word. That's literally what he just said. Word for word. Listen to him. Look, watch this.
While we're calling for that, we're not sitting on our hands. We were able to handle 194,000 migrants and asylum seekers that came into the city. We put in place smart decisions that we're down to only a little over 60,000 that are still in our care. Yep. A large number have gone on to the next leg of their journey. So we're not just sitting back. Yes, we need help from the federal government spending over $4 billion in taxpayers' dollars. But while they're making their decisions, we're doing what's right for the people of this city.
Senator Jill.
Let me get a round of applause for y'all latest legislators. You don't need AI. You don't need AI. You don't need voiceovers. You don't need none of that. All you need is Anton from AntonDaniels.com, making sure that we address the needs of the people. We are safer, we are sounder, we make sure that we get the National Guard here in New York, and we are not sitting idly on our hands until we get justice, peace, and reparations for all. Shout out to Eric Adams. We love reviewing you here on the Millionaire Morning Show. Shout out to you. Woo! So that is the latest of what's going on across the country with your migrant crisis. Let me go.